Brands Hatch race results mean that Jim Jr. starts round 2 with a 2-point advantage over Daniel Buxton, with Simon Clark third ahead of Jim Sr. And it's the Brands Hatch rivalry all over again on the Donington grid. Edwards on pole this time, just 0.3 of a second ahead of the Brands Hatch pace setter, Daniel Buxton. 28 cars on the grid, the Brands Hatch rivals heading the field. Jim Edwards Jr. and Daniel Buxton with Pete Sowerby and Andy Thompson behind them. Row 3 of the grid, Matt Jackson and Jason Templeman ahead of Henry Taylor and David Davies. Rick Pearson and Jim Edwards Sr. complete the top 10. The lights go from red to green to start the 14-lap Elf Renault Sport Clio Cup race. And it's go! Jim Edwards Jr. in the blue and white car, the yellow car of Daniel Buxton alongside of him. Already on the grass, Henry Taylor, a stalled car at the back of the field, and right down the grass on the inside, Peter Sowerby in the green car, up into second place, and cars being squeezed wide on the exit of Redgate. Jim Edwards Jr. loses ground and a spinner. Number 24, David Davies, off on the outside of the track, but it's the green car out in front. Peter Sowerby leading down the Craner curves, chased by Matt Jackson up to second from 5th on the starting grid. Then Andy Thompson, Jason Templeman, Henry Taylor, and a green car goes wide. Pete Sowerby fighting for control on the grass, 100 miles an hour at the Craner curve, still in 5th gear, trying to get it back onto the tarmac. He's lost a lot of ground. Oh, he's lost it completely now, and that is head on at 110 miles an hour. Buxton hits him fair and square. Buxton's car spewing water, that's stranded in the middle of the track. Pete Sowerby's car is off on the grass on the outside, but the race goes on. Matt Jackson now leads Henry Taylor on the run out of Coppice Corner, down the straight into the chicane. Matt Jackson in the lead, Henry Taylor, number 88. Well, he had a great start down the grass as well. Then Andy Thompson third, Jason Templeman fourth, and Jim Edwards Jr. back down in the field, and a challenge there. But it is still the number 8 car, Matt Jackson, out in front, riding with Gary Townsend. Started 16th, but this is a bid for 12th place, right down the inside of Jan Prowse, off the tail of David Gibson. He's shouting in the car, he's over the grass. Now, can he hold on to that 11th place? He's being forced wide, though. He can't take a tight defensive line. There must be a car on his right-hand side, a flash of orange in the bottom of the windscreen there. Jan Prowse is there on his inside. Oh, and so is another car as well. 3 abreast into Redgate Corner, and he loses ground again, back down into unlucky 13th place, right on the tail of Jan Prowse. And the race leader's off. Matt Jackson gets it back onto the track, and don't forget there's a car stranded there. The yellow flag's only seen at the last possible minute. And what a surprise for the race leader, and I think he thinks there's going to be a safety car on the track. He's backed off. But there's green flags there, and taking advantage, very quick thinking there. Henry Taylor down the inside, followed through by Jim Edwards Jr. and Matt Jackson trying to regain the momentum now. Up into Coppice Corner, he's trying to close the door on the cars behind, but he's being clipped, and off he goes. Well, he must be furious with himself about that, because he misread the signals. He thought there'd be a safety car, there wasn't, and the man who took advantage, Henry Taylor, now with a gap, but Jim Edwards right in his slipstream. Tight line from Taylor into the chicane, forcing Jim Edwards to take the long way round. No way through this time around, but this is going to be a splendid scrap. Behind them, Jason Templeman, then the 2 blue and white cars, as they do now slow in formation. No overtaking allowed. And let's look at that opening lap again. Pete Sowerby, perhaps there, the tyres a little bit cold. The tail just came out of line, unstuck him. Fighting for control on the grass, no grip there. But the car trips up just as he rejoins the tarmac. Fishtails one way, fishtails the other way, but that is a 110 mile an hour head-on collision. Daniel Buxton lucky there to escape with no injury, just a severely battered motor car. Both Pete Sowerby and Daniel Buxton are not going to get points from this weekend. The shrug of the shoulders says absolutely everything. So now the car's circulating behind the safety car, the oil flag out down at the old hairpin as well. But the lights are off on the safety car. That is the signal. It's coming into the pits. The race is going to restart. And at the head of the pack, it's Henry Taylor. Has the advantage of getting the jump on Jim Edwards. Let's see if he can do it. It's the come-up across the line. No overtaking to the start line. The race is on now, though. And Henry Taylor's taken a little bit of airspace. Jim Edwards takes a look out down the inside. Into Redgate Corner, though, through in convoy. Taylor, Edwards, Templeman, Pearson, and then Jim Edwards Sr. at the tail of that group. Down the Craner curve, speed building up past 100 miles an hour. A little bit of a wiggle there from Henry Taylor, right on the limit. And don't forget, the rear tyres on a front-wheel drive car cool down quickly when you're behind a safety car. So the handling will be very twitchy for this opening lap as they build the heat back up. Jim Edwards Jr., though, keeping the pressure on, and somebody has a squeal of tyres, and that is number 10. Jason Templeman was in third place, back-end damage, and that means he's been hit by Rick Pearson, and Pearson has dropped out of third place. So no sign of Pearson, a bit of a gap now, and Jim Edwards Sr. and Stuart Clark are running in third and fourth place. They've got a tremendous battle on there, being joined by number 14, Graham Holmes as well. And scraps going on all the way up and down the field. And the man taking advantage, Stuart Clark, in his first ever Renault Clio Sport race. On his way through the field, up into the third place, and a tremendous battle for seventh. Andy Thompson, number 6 in the silver. Simon Clark moves up down the inside, smokes his tyres, but takes that 7th place in the number 5 car. Race leaders already across the line, and still the pressure on Henry Taylor, soaking up the pressure from Jim Edwards. Then Stuart Clark third. Rick Pearson now up into 4th place. Jim Edwards Sr. dropping down into 5th behind his Mark Fish Motorsport teammate. Then it's Graham Holmes in 6th. Simon Clark and Andy Thompson still contesting 7th and 8th places. And the pressure equally on all the way down the 20 surviving cars in this race. Maximum rate braking into the old hairpin, lifting a wheel there on the curbs. That was Rick Pearson in 4th place, followed by Jim Edwards and Graham Holmes. And Graham Holmes now starting to push pressure on Jim Edwards Sr., but coming up fast behind him, the white car there of Simon Clark, number 5. And it may be Jim Edwards Sr. in a bit of tyre trouble or something there, loses momentum. Just a little kiss on the back of Graham Holmes' car, though, as Holmes loses momentum out of the corner. Oh, and trying to climb up the inside of Jim Edwards' car there, number 5. Simon Clark loses the momentum, and back through into that 7th place goes Andy Thompson. Battle still on for 5th, though, with Graham Holmes. Jim Edwards right in his slipstream. Graham Holmes, former 125cc gearbox kart champion, the 140 mile an hour karts. Right at home in the sharp handling Renault Clio, holding back Jim Edwards there. And behind them now, Simon Clark, Andy Thompson, still putting their pressure on and having a fantastic battle. Number 6, Andy Thompson, making a bit of a break as Jim Edwards tries to find a way back down the inside into Redgate Corner. Can he make it stick? Graham Holmes holds on, switches to the inside line down the Craner curves, carries the speed out, quick thinking there, change of racing line, and it's the yellow car once again with the advantage down the Craner curves. Little bit of a wiggle there as Jim Edwards Sr. has to back off the throttle right away down the absolute corner, and taking tremendous advantage. Andy Thompson just slips down the inside, perfectly judged overtaking move. Advertised here, it says, well, this is the best billboard he could have for his driving abilities. Down the inside of the highly experienced ex-touring car and ex-Formula 3 racer Jim Edwards Sr. But Jim Edwards hasn't given up yet, closing back in, and that's been good news for number 14, Graham Holmes, able to take a little bit of a break. Meanwhile, battle on, and 2 wheels on his wagon there. The 2-wheeling Ray McDowell closing in on the tail of Simon Clark. But still the pressure on race leader Henry Taylor from Jim Edwards Jr. And Henry Taylor from Battle in Sussex definitely has a battle on his hands now. Oh, and there's all sorts of chaos at the chicane. It's on road, but it's still mayhem for Andy Thompson, Graham Holmes and Jim Edwards Sr. running 3 abreast, trading paint, trading body panels. And the man who's come out on top of that is Andy Thompson. And 3 abreast once again into Redgate Corner. This really is saloon car one-make racing at its absolute best. Equally matched cars, and it's all down to the driving skill, the bravado, the sheer bottle of these drivers. And at the moment now, Andy Thompson starting to take the break away from Graham Holmes. A little bit of a damaged nose on Holmes' car. Jim Edwards there right behind him, followed by Simon Clark, Ray McDowell and David Gibson throwing up the dust. Ray McDowell in the number 4 car now with his head down. He can see this 3-car train ahead of him, all tripping one another up, all defending the lines and therefore not taking the fastest line through the corner. And that's giving him a chance to close up. And once again, David Gibson with the flames on his bonnet throws up the dirt, tries to run wheel to wheel with Simon Clark. Simon, the man who's losing ground. Henry Taylor, Jim Edwards Jr., Stuart Clark and Rick Pearson still lead this group, but all eyes are on this battle for 5th because it's going to be the last of the late breakers out of the slipstream. Jim Edwards Sr. goes very, very deep down the inside, closing the door, number 14, Graham Holmes. Over the dirt flies Jim Edwards Sr. right up onto his tail. Comes the number 4 car, Ray McDowell, and there's absolutely no quarter given anywhere in this race. But the battle for the lead still very much on again. Henry Taylor and Jim Edwards Jr. It's Sussex versus Maidenhead in Berkshire at the head of the field, and at the moment it's number 88, Henry Taylor, the man who won his first ever drive in motor racing at a competition at Silverstone Circuit. Well, he's come on some since then, and if he can hold on at the head of this will be his first ever championship race win. 20 years of age, a saloon car expert, has raced Fiestas and Vectras, yet to win a championship race though. And still Jim Edwards Jr. still there on his tail, keeping up the pressure. And he's in an ideal position now on that long Wheatcroft straight into the chicane. Dive out of the slipstream, take advantage of the slingshot, but keeping the tight line into the chicane. The widest Renault Clio on the track, the number 88 car, Henry Taylor, watching his mirrors as much as the windscreen. Everywhere that Jim Edwards jinks, he finds that silver Clio is in his way. Oh, and more mayhem at the chicane. Jim Edwards Sr. flies over the dirt, side by side behind between 4 and 14, and 14's off. And a huge impact for Graham Holmes. He's gone onto the track and spinning the other way. The number 4 car, McDowell, is off with heavy front end damage, and they were 2 huge impacts. And the number 14 car of Graham Holmes stranded in the middle of the track. The steering's broken, and he looks as if he's been winded in the car as well. Marshall's running very rapidly to their aid, but I am sure that another safety car or even the red flags will have to be waved because they're not going to move that car easily. It's right on the racing line at the exit of a 90-mile-an-hour corner. And number 88, the race leader, is still running absolutely flat out. Henry Taylor up to Coppice Corner, just the length of the start-finish straight now, between himself and that carnage down on the start line. And the racing still goes on, using every one of those 180 brake horsepower, flat out up to 130 miles an hour down on the final run of the chicane. But 2 other cars aren't going to see the finish. Off go 25 and 21, Jan Prowse and Dennis Bunning, locked together in the gravel trap. Well, they'll be having a few words about that, but yes, the red flags are being waved to end the race prematurely. The cars on the 12th lap of the race, the results will be calculated back to lap 11. Well, let's see what happens here. Jim Edwards Sr. causes a bit of a bottleneck. The contact there just throws the number 14 car of Graham Holmes very hard into the wall. All the front wheels locked up, and off on the other side of the track, the number 4 car of Ray McDowell. Well, thankfully, there is Graham Holmes being helped from his car, bruised and winded, but otherwise basically unhurt, but he's going to face a very big repair bill. Results calculated back though, Henry Taylor taking his first victory, Jim Edwards second, Stuart Clark in his first ever Clio race third, Rick Pearson fourth, Andy Thompson and Graham Holmes given 5th and 6th. But what a debut for young Stuart Clark.
Put it down to luck or what, but yeah, as I say, we got the deal done last week. Car ran for the first time in anger yesterday in qualifying. It hadn't turned a wheel since then. We had to spend the morning practice session bedding the car in. So managed in the race just to keep my head down, try and read what was happening in the race, keep my head clean, keep the nose clean, and seems to have paid off. So it's brilliant. Good for the team as well.
Well, plenty of drama in the race right from almost the first corner. Poor old Peter Sowerby will be ruining this attempt to rejoin the track and the subsequent head-on collision with Buxton.
I don't think it's rough. I don't think the drivers are intending to have these accidents. The cars are lively, and they take some. You need to respect the cars in the first few laps, and once people realise that and drive accordingly. I mean, there's me saying that. I drove straight off at the first corner. I'm a victim of it myself. But if people realise that, then I think things will be a lot better later on in the year.
Well, rough driving maybe not. Certainly lively cars and a tremendous battle with Henry Taylor taking the checkered flag.
I was just sort of holding my place really. I wasn't trying to push the car, so not to wear my tyres out too much and keep the brakes working to the very end really, and just not pushing it too much, just holding place really, so just keep him behind me.
But it's Jim Edwards Jr. who still leads the championship points total by 18 points from Rick Pearson, whose fourth place moves him ahead of Jim Edwards Sr., Simon Clark, Andy Thompson and Henry Taylor.